please rise for the invocation by Reverend Bob Rhodes, pastor of the First United Methodist Church.
Thank you for this invitation, and I'm thankful that we can still pray before local government meetings. So let us pray. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh upon all who are gathered in this council chamber on this eve of the day spring 2013 bursts upon us. May our honorable mayor and members of the city council gain a glimpse of your mind, your will, and your heart for this very sacred and beautiful corner of your magnificent creation. And Creator God, tune all of our lives and our spirits with the rhythm of your design for life here in the days and weeks and months and years ahead. And may your sacred power, peace, and presence guide and grace all people here of all creeds and color, all ages and stages of life, and throughout our home of Hickory, as we pray in the name and spirit of the one who offers life abundant and eternal. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first on tonight's agenda, we'll have our special presentation. I'll call on David Crosby.
Good evening. My name is Dave Pace, and I'm representing the Hickory Business Development Committee. Too often, in our rush to attract and develop new business opportunities, we overlook those companies which sustain us. One of these companies is Alder Sally Incorporated. Alder Sally Incorporated, which includes both Merchants Distributors Inc. and Lowe's Foods Inc., was founded in Hickory in 1931 as a grocery supply company by Moses George. His philosophy was, if your customers are successful and your suppliers are successful, you will be successful. Over the past 8 decades, using this philosophy, Alder Sally Inc. has grown to a regional powerhouse, including over 1,900 employees in the Hickory area. They also are They also have invested heavily in the community, including 2 of the North Carolina's largest food banks, as well as a locally grown produce campaign called the 10% campaign. For this reason, the City Council and the BDC would like to recognize Alder Sally for their positive impact on the Hickory community. And we have Brian George and Kimberly George of Alder Sally here to accept the award.
Thank you. Come back for just a second.
We need to get a photo op.
I also want to take this opportunity on behalf of the council, and I should have said this already, Mayor Wright is out of town tonight. I'm head guest Mayor Pro Tem, and I'll be filling in tonight. But we certainly want to congratulate them and thank them for all of their years of service and for everything they do for our community. So thanks again to the Alder Sally Corporation. All right, next on the agenda is persons requesting to be heard. And in just a few minutes, I'll ask if there is anyone present tonight that would like to address council. And if there is anyone present that would like to address council, I'll ask them if they would please come to the podium and state their name and address. But before I do that, I would like to cover some specific rules pertaining to persons requesting to be heard. First of all, we would ask that individuals desiring to speak limit their conversation to 3 minutes. Our city clerk will announce the time in 3-minute intervals, and if you are unable to complete your subject matter in the first 3 minutes, then we have provisions in place to allow you to continue and to finish your topic. We ask that the person at the podium conduct themselves in a professional and courteous manner, and that there be no personal attacks against any group or individuals. And we also ask that members of our audience respect the person at the podium, and that there would be no outburst either in favor or opposed to the person that is presenting their topic. Last, we would ask that we would say that council members will not answer questions. However, at the conclusion of the person's presentation, if there are any questions or concerns, we will direct those to the appropriate staff and ask that they respond in a timely fashion. So next, I would just ask if there's anyone that would like to speak, and if so, let's say I've got one here that's wrote down. David Crosby of 731 10th Street Drive Northwest has signed up to speak. Is there anyone else besides David that is requesting to speak tonight? Okay. Then I'll call upon Mr. David Crosby, please.
Mr. Berry, Mr. Crone, council members. I am nervous, so it's going to take me a minute to calm down. Being professional, I'm not sure I can do that. Being courtesy, I will do that. I have to be very courteous to everyone in this room. What I wanted to talk about tonight is something that y'all are about 3 weeks ago, longer than 2 months ago, it was brought up about the audio visual project that we're looking into as a city to do that. And I come to you tonight thinking about this thing for weeks now as to why we want to move that way. We have a group of people here tonight that may be, I don't know, 70 people at the most. I heard Sally bring up one time at the meeting, excuse me, Sally, I heard Mrs. Fox bring up one night at the meeting about, are we going to put a curtain up so that people won't see how empty our place is? And as a businessman, I thought about this. We own a business here in Hickory on 3rd Avenue Drive. And for me to spend $16,000 in my business, I think about it a long time. I just have a hard time with that. When I figured $16,000 and you may get 300 people watching something, we don't know if it's going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning. That's a lot of money. That's probably less than 1/10 of 1% of the population in Hickory. And I just have a hard time seeing us spend that kind of money when we got businesses that are moving out. We've got a square downtown that's moving out. I think a lot of ways we could spend money better than that. And I talked to some of my neighbors, and actually they laughed at me when I told them what we were getting ready, what the city was thinking about doing. I don't take this as a laughing matter. I take it as a serious matter. And I know I'm speaking before it's being brought up and everything else, which I don't like, but I'm one person. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a resident of Hickory, been for 15, 16 years. I like Hickory. I don't plan on moving from Hickory. Y'all televise this or not, it doesn't matter to me, because you probably never get me on TV because I'll never speak again. But anyway, I'm against it. I don't think we should spend money. I think if we go do something, let's put a tape in here, let it be on the tape and put a CD together, and somebody wants it, let them have it. Send it to them, because it's not going to be live anyway. So we're looking at something that's going to be history by the time people look at it. So that's what I have to say, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for your comments. Once again, is there anyone else present that's desiring to speak tonight? Okay, there being no one else desiring to speak, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 5th, 2013.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move approve.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion was made by Mr. Seaver, second by Mrs. Patton. The decision carried unanimously. All right, motion to approve the special joint meeting of City Council and Inspiring Spaces on March 5th, 2013. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion was made by Mrs. Patton, seconded by Mrs. Fox, and the motion carried unanimously. Motion to reaffirm or ratify on second readings.
I move reaffirm and ratify on second reading.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mrs. Patton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Is there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move it be approved.
Second.
All right. Motion by Mr. Meisner, second by Mr. Seaver. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. All right, we're down to informational items. Mr. Barrett?
Thank you. One item of information for council this evening, that's the report of Mayor Wright's travel to the mayor's meeting with Governor Hickory, sponsored by the Metro Mayors, which the city of Hickory is a member of. And that was March 5th and 6th. The report includes the meals, mileage reimbursement, and lodging for 1 month.
We have no public hearings listed tonight, so next on the agenda is the departmental reports, and again, I'll call on Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. The first departmental report, I'll ask the city's administrative services director, Mr. Mike Bent, to come before you and present the information about preparing the chambers, city council chambers for audio video improvements.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barrett, Mayor Pro Tem guests, city council members, Mr. Chairman. Since your last, well, not your last meeting, but a month ago on February 19th, and at your request that we as staff look into more further details of costs related to broadcasting these meetings on television. We have done so. As staff, we've met with the selected vendors that we would look to in working with and fine-tuned some of the quotes that we had originally received and added and subtracted some things from those quotes. So I wanted to kind of go through those that are listed out here. As far as some of the improvement costs, the first would be the audio upgrade, which would encompass replacing the complete microphone system that's in this room. The system was placed or put in here, I believe it was 1998 or 99, about that time frame. And actually, before we had the request to look into filming council meetings, we had already put out some requests for proposals on updating the microphone system due to some complaints we had with being able to hear and also in the audio recording. But with that cost at $13,562, that includes replacing each of the microphones at your desk, but bringing them a little bit closer to you. So really they would stand on a base slightly to your right, about arm's length, probably about 15 inches from the edge of the desk, slightly to your right, so you could have some space in front of you. On the base of that microphone would actually be an on-off switch, so it would be a little bit different than you're currently used to, or prior to speaking you would just simply turn it on and after making comment turn it off in order to help reduce other noises in the background of the audio recording. The other changes that would happen would be there would be a wireless microphone at the podium as well as at the clerk's desk. Part of broadcasting or filming council meetings would mean we would want to change the podium to be almost in this area that the IT stand is at near Alderman Patton, so that if the footage would be filmed from about the entryway, so you could actually see the face of those who are speaking as opposed to just catching behind the person speaking. So with that and some of the problems we've had with the cords on that, we looked at a wireless microphone at the podium at the clerk's desk. The only other addition would actually be 4 assisted listening devices that would be helpful for those who may need assistance in hearing the meetings that attend the meetings here. Second on here is the removal of the picture that is behind you and the subsequent sealing, patching, priming, painting the wall, and that's $620. And this goes along with the third improvement, which is upgrading some of the lighting. As we met with Charter Communications, they pointed out that having more of a light cream-colored wall behind you without a picture would help avoid the blending of you all into that picture and be able to make a clear, crisp view on the film. What that would what that would, originally when we talked a month ago, we were thinking we would have to upgrade 2 rows of lights. Not the lights directly behind you, but this first row and the second. And what we've identified is that we think we actually can do it with just those 4 lights, so we were able to cut those material costs down. You can see those costs there at $537. The last item would be, instead of having a blank wall behind you, adding the logo, and it would look something like this. So it would be above the level when you're seated above your heads, where whenever it's broadcast or read in here, you can see the city's logo. Coming back to this, as far as actual filming, we would be looking at working with an independent contractor that works closely with Charter Communications, and they would charge us $200 per meeting. So about $4,600 annually if we base it on the typical 23 council meetings per year. What that charge would include would be getting basically a wide view of the front here, possibly occasionally zooming in, but not a lot of zoom. We wouldn't have multiple cameras in here and those kind of things. But it would also be getting the footage, inserting the names of those who are speaking. You can see the Hickory logo as well. At the bottom, you have the name of who's speaking. And when someone has a digital presentation, it will be inserted into the footage during the film. These would be made available. It would not be live. It would be within about 48 hours, where the Charter Communications would broadcast on the government channel. No additional cost, and also it would be available on the city's YouTube channel, so that anybody can view it at any time they'd like on the web. A couple other things that we were asked to look into, some additional options, would be if we wanted to upgrade the projector in this room. This would not have a direct impact on filming or the footage of council meetings, but having the podium over here and looking at if we were to upgrade the projector, that would mean mounting it about this location under the ceiling. The projector we currently have is meant for a pretty close location to the screen. So to replace that and have a little bit wider view and a clear visual of the presentations in this room, you can see that cost at just a little over $5,400. The other option that we were asked to compare this to is to compare it to putting basically large television monitors. And with that, if an 80-inch monitor, if you put that in this same location, you can see the price there at $4,469. And if we were asked as well to consider if there was a smaller monitor on this side and have visuals from both ways, so you could see the costs on that as well. Some of the main differences between a monitor and a projector. If we upgraded the projector so it was able to get a clear, crisp shot from a further distance back here, the visual of a presentation, a typical presentation, would be fairly similar to what you see right now. It'd be a little clearer and brighter, and maybe slightly wider. But if it's an 80-inch monitor, one thing that monitors are clean. They're easy to work with in conference rooms and such. But one thing that definitely did want to point out is that if you're looking at this PowerPoint right now, it would be about 20 inches less in height and in width. So it would be a smaller image that you're actually looking at. A typical PowerPoint presentation would not stretch the 80 inches of the monitor. So a couple things to point out there. Basically, those are the costs that we've identified in presenting, being able to record and present on television and on the YouTube channel in a way that it's not very dark, or dim image where it would be a clear visual and done in a well-crafted way. But short of creating a production studio and going that far. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Bennett, I have just a couple of questions. One, you take the mural down, what will it do with the mural?
Well, the mural is actually, the way I understand it, it is almost like a painting on wallpaper. I think would be the best way to explain it. So if it comes down, it's coming down in pieces.
Yeah, we can't
I had
guarantee.
a couple of
Stay
people at
with
the
that.
Kiwanis Club meeting asked me to try to preserve the mural.
I've heard some talk about that too.
Another question is if, do we need a projector and monitors or
No,
one or the other?
it would be one or the other. If you were to consider those additional options, it would be either upgrading the projector system so there'd be one focal point like we have now, just mounting a projector, or getting rid of a projector system and having one or two monitors on the wall.
As far as the quality of the difference between the monitor and the projector, which is the best?
Quality, you're going to get very similar. The high-grade projectors give an extremely clear visual from a far distance, and it's going to be very, very clear. The monitors, in the same way, are extremely clear and crisp, and it doesn't matter with lighting. It's not like you have to dim lighting to see it any better. The difference would be size. You're going to get a larger size of view with the projector than you will on the monitor. Some would probably argue that the visual on the monitor might be slightly clearer, but I think they're pretty close.
Mr. Bennett, was there also some advantage to the monitor as far as Charlie was concerned with the direct input?
Yeah, that's a good question. We because if we'd have this podium over here, so people are facing diagonal to you, it would, and we move this station, we basically have the computer that's connected to either a projector or a monitor over here near the clerks, which would mean we would plug it straight into the audio system, so that if you were playing video or anything with sound on your presentation, it would come through the audio. But it would be the same whether it was a projector or a monitor. Some of the difficulty in this room, if it's a projector, there's not a lot of room, if at all, in the walls, in the ceiling up here. So you might have kind of covered cable coming across to get power to that. With a monitor, it would come through and go up where the lights are and come back down and hit over here. So both ways our building maintenance, they can be pretty creative when it comes to getting that power to those items, and we'll be able to do it. But either way, both will be connected to the audio system, so that instead of hearing it from the desktop speakers, that we can.
Mr. Bennett, I really appreciate all your information. You're doing an in-depth job as usual. And I appreciate Mr. Crosby. I have probably talked to 25 businessmen, and to the one, no one is in favor of this. I've sat at the Board of Realtors, and they all ask, why would we do this? And, every one of us here has had, in my family, my wife wanted new ceiling fans. We've had them 20 years. They still work. It comes a time when you say, is this really necessary? We just spent some time in Raleigh, all of us, talking about another possible tax. We're looking at revenue. I just don't think the timing is right. And I'd like to make a motion that we delay till after our budget crunch and budget figures come in, and we see whether we can afford new ceiling fans. Nobody tell my wife this. But we've all had to do this. And, yes, it does take us into the 21st century, and yes, but times are tough now. And business people are hunkering down. And I just think this shows that we are not hunkering down.
I'll second that motion, and I just have a comment. I have a little bit different take on this. Somewhere years ago, I read about the loss of sense of community and loss of, by community or neighborhood, people, and it had to do with air conditioning and television. People came home, they went into their air-conditioned houses, and they turned on their TV, and no one interacted. Today we have cell phones, and we have computers, and I don't know how many of us have been in restaurants or with other people who are engaged with their cell phones or their computers. And maybe I have a step in history, but I don't think that's the way for us to go. I applaud people that come down here. I may not always agree with everyone, and there may be people that are sitting in the audience that have never agreed with anything I've ever done. But I will give you an A+ for making the effort to come down here and be engaged with what goes on in your community. And as far as the mural, I've been in this council chamber off and on for 25 years. And I have heard so many folks from outside of this community comment on our council chamber because we have something no one else has.
I also remind everyone that at each of these meetings are available on audio, and within a matter of, I want to say hours, maybe 24 hours or more, a little more, they're available on our website, and the presentations are also available with that audio. So that is currently available as we speak.
I asked my father what he thought about it. He watches it over in East Tennessee, he watches it on television live. I said, well, we're talking about maybe having it videotaped and playing it a day or two later. He said, well, by that time I've read about it in the paper. So he said, you can't do it live, you couldn't do it. So that's just him, but he's 80-some years old. He can't get out and go. What Ms. Fox alluded to, I see happening all the time with kids in high school and substituting, and they've all got their little TV sets in their hand. Look, lack for a better word, you call them cell phones, iPads, whatever, iPods. But it's taken their attention away from the social aspects of living, eye contact, body language. They're not reading that anymore. So all they're doing is reading the way it's typed, and they don't even spell words correctly anymore. They shorten them all. So it's hard to really understand what somebody means sometimes. If there are any Frank Zappa fans out there, listen to the slime about stuff oozing out from your TV set. He wrote that in 1969. Well, there's a few old people that are talking in.
I think this is a response to people that can't get down to the meetings, but and I agree with Mr. Seaver that it's over and done with 2 days later. But this, I agree, I would like to see us go through the budget process, see where we are with it, rather than just throw money at it and see kind of where the budget falls. I would like to see us proceed on the project though.
May I just indulge you? Mr. Bennett is a little soft-spoken. Todd, did you hear everything?
Yes.
Gina, did you hear everything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just curious. I've heard the comments that our audio is pretty bad. Please.
I think the audio is because I'm soft-spoken, more soft-spoken than you are, and I think Ms. Fox also, sometimes when we don't lean forward and speak, I think that's part of it, so we need to school ourselves until we decide to do something different.
It's hard to lean forward next year.
For those of y'all that don't know, we have signs on our microphones that says, "In order to be heard clearly, please speak loudly and lean into the microphone."
We're up here doing this.
Is that what that says?
Yeah, we can't see it because we all don't wear our glasses.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
What's the motion?
I would like to reiterate the motion.
My motion is to delay the vote and/or discussion until after the budget process for this upcoming budget fiscal year.
And the date on that would be approximately.
May, June.
Approximately.
May, June.
We typically bring you a budget in May, and vote on it in June.
So we're gonna have some time to think about it.
And thanks to Mr. Crosby, we will hopefully have some time for some input too.
Right. And I would encourage each of you, not only in the audience, but your friends and family to discuss this and let us know how you feel about this particular topic. I think that we would encourage you to do that. Each of us would encourage you to do that. Okay, we've got a motion by Mr. Meisner and a second by Mrs. Fox. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Mr. Barrett, the next item.
Thank you. Next item, I'll ask Assistant City Manager Andrea Saratkin to present an item. I'll let her describe it next one.
Mr. Barry, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, Mr. Crone. So this tonight is a request to purchase property, and it is at 159 12th Street Court Southeast. And so what I want to do is just take you back through a few key points about our community development block grant program, because this is dollars that would come from the federal government to the city of Hickory as an entitlement community to be spent on community development activities. And so block grants, all the dollars nationally have to be spent on really 3 different areas. First, an option is to spend it on projects that benefit low to moderate income persons. It also allows us to spend it on the elimination of slums and blight. And also, as you approved earlier in your consent agenda, it allows us to do urgent repairs or have urgent needs met through those funds. And so nationally, that is really those are the 3 criteria for CDBG grant dollars. And through the low to moderate activities, and that has to be 70% of our CDBG program, which leaves about 30% to be able to be used for more economic development related or non-low to moderate income related projects. In the low to mod category is then broken into 4 areas that we can spend that money on, or we qualify it in 4 different ways. So just as a refresher, first of all, if you have an area benefit, so such as a particular construction of a park or a sidewalk, something that helps a low to moderate income area and all the neighborhood benefits, that's an area that, that's a use of the funds that's appropriate. Also, if you had a specific project that's related to a clientele group that has limited access or limited capabilities, and some examples in this slide list, the construction of a community center or other services, that's also a potential area that dollars can be spent on. Low to moderate income housing is another activity, and that's a large portion of our program at this point. And so that includes the rehab of single-family homes, down payment assistance, infrastructure improvements on publicly owned land, and all of that needs to be in that low to moderate income area. And finally, if there were projects that helped job creation and retention in the low to moderate income area, then those potentially could be projects that CDBG dollars, CBD, oh goodness, CBD development block grant dollars can cover. So all of that is to say that their census tracts determine where those low to mod areas are. And so we work with these standards that zero us down into some block levels and neighborhood levels that then the dollars go toward those. So what we're finding is over the last few years, probably as a trend related to the economy, that we have fewer and fewer applications for rehabilitation dollars, rehab dollars to be used through our program. So years ago, you may have had more applications that came through the CAC that were for people wanting to rehab their homes, and they access those dollars. And we just have fewer of those. And nationally, that's a trend as well. And so what CDBG programs are looking to do is just to try to, again, shift and figure out the best places to spend those dollars, because there are requirements to spend those dollars over periods of time. And so with that, we found an opportunity in this particular case with the house that we've mentioned here, 159 12th Street, Court Southeast, that potentially rehabilitating an existing home has some opportunity to spend our CDBG dollars. And so the proposal here, well, let me just finish this thought. So we've done home purchases in the past. And we've done those potentially to demolish those homes and create, and that might have fallen under the slums and blight category, or it might have fallen under just an expansion for new projects. And so this is a similar type of request. So instead of purchasing the home to demolish, we purchased to rehab and turn it back into a viable single-family home in a neighborhood that's very stable, minus this property. And so this area, this is the house in particular. It's in an area of town, and I'm going to forward so you can see the map. So this is the home right here. This is Main Avenue, Highland Avenue, Tate Boulevard to the south, LR Boulevard. This is Hickory Chair. And so this is the neighborhood, and it's on a cul-de-sac that then has a number of other homes on it. And so this particular home originally was a Habitat home, and so a family lived there, but the house became something that they could not afford over time, and for whatever reason, and we're not here to really discuss that portion, but it became a situation where the Habitat took it over as a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And so with that, then the house then needs some repair. It needs a new HVAC, flooring materials. There's some holes in the wall, maybe some windows that need to be replaced. And so some things need to be done to improve this property so that it can stay on the books as a strong single-family home in that nice neighborhood. And so part of the opportunity is for the city, who needs to use those CDBG dollars for rehab, to purchase that home from Habitat. That frees up some funds that Habitat can then go and make renovations on 3 or 4 other homes. And I'll just hit that slide to explain that a little more detail. And then what we would do is to contract out for the rehab of this home. We're estimating approximately $15,000 to $20,000, and then that home then would be ready to sell, and Habitat or the city, we would just look for a family who would purchase this home. And so we anticipate that could take about a year to do, all being told. And so those are the details of the house itself. And so when that house sells, then we get program income that comes back to the city then to help our program. And so you can see there's not a garage on the home. There's you pull up into the driveway there, enter the front door, and that's the area. This is the neighborhood. And the driveway that we just saw is right there on the left. And so really with that, the request is to ask council's permission to move forward with a contract on the home and work through the program for rehab of this one home, this one time, where it makes sense to use the CDBG dollars in this way. And then we'll be moving into a new fiscal year, coming to you in a few short weeks through budget information that will be presented by the planning staff that is related to the fiscal year for the new CDBG dollars. And so with that, I'm just answering any questions if I can.
You said it would be $15,000 to $20,000 to rehab this?
Roughly, it's what, we just gotten general estimates done through Habitat, I believe, gave us some just pencil estimates about, the things that I listed, the HVAC, the flooring, the walls, the windows.
Habitat has a rehab program, correct?
They do rehab homes, yes.
Then why are they not rehabbing this one versus
Right.
asking the city?
Well, I think in this case, there's an opportunity for us to cover the cost, which is a significant part of, maybe a significant portion of their budget. It's a cash flow issue potentially for Habitat to be able to rehab more homes and not just one home if they can not have the burden of the that cost of that home on their books. So if we took that, then it could still be rehabbed by the dollars that we have access to. They can rehab 3 or 4 other houses, and then we're just that much further to the good.
And what's the total available that we need to be spending on CDBG funds?
Well, our total budget comes in at about $340,000, but it's broken into many pieces, and that's what we'll cover very soon in April.
So how do we go about selection of family, because I know that they have a process. Do we turn that process over to them, or do we?
We could, or we could screen them ourselves, and then we have a higher threshold for what's considered a low moderate. And I could ask Mr. Leonetti to speak to that in detail, but as I understand it, more people could qualify under our definition than what maybe the Habitat definition is. But we would work together. I think we just, make sure it was, the realtors knew it was available as potential purchase property, and we just worked to find the right people that fit that criteria.
What's the tax value on that?
The tax value is $91,000.
That's what I was going to ask also, the difference between the appraised value and the tax value, that seems to be significant.
Well, right, I mean, it is, tax value is determined by the assessor's office, Catawba County, tied to the last time it was appraised or assessed. And then you have appraised value, and it's a home that needs quite a bit of repair. And so I'm not an expert on the differences there, but I
Well, it
imagine
basically is
it's
the
not
last time
habitable.
they were inside the house. It was appraised at $91,000.
So-
If all
so-
that work is needed to be done,
Yeah.
then it's valued way under tax value.
And this is the first for us doing this.
To purchase and rehab this item, yes, for Habitat. But we'd like to explore lots of options in the future, and so.
And if those funds, if we don't use them, how long, do they run out, do we get them back, how does that work?
Well, we would have to give them back at some point. But the goal really is to rehab houses, and so we've done a lot of the tear downs and working through the slum and blight, but we'd like to rehab some as sort of a different approach, and so that's really the difference. But we don't have, we are an entitlement community that gets funds, and so that we want to be sure we're moving through our program efficiently and making sure we're spending those dollars. And so we have a whole host of things that we'll be bringing to you after in April.
So although this is new for us, it's not new.
That's right. I mean, cities do this, and
It's not, Ms. Surratt said earlier, you have actually bought property through the CDBG program a number of times. Almost yearly, we bought different properties. A lot of it has been in the slum and blight category. So that's not anything new. It's a little bit of the nuances that we're going to buy it and then actually rehab it and then put it back out on the market. We've bought them before and then partnered with Habitat to build a new home there. So you do that. That's part of your affordable housing program, which we're mandated to do if we're going to be an entitlement community through HUD and through CDBG, which is a good thing.
Now, we going to carry a note on that if we sell the house?
No, they'd either get private financing through a bank, or if they qualify through Habitat, they go back through Habitat's program. We don't envision ourselves necessarily carrying a note on them.
But we have that program in place. We do, and that's an option.
That's what I was asking. I mean, we seem to be growing our CDBG funds, which is a good thing. I know a lot of cities, and I may be wrong, get it and they spend it, and it's gone.
Yeah.
We're not like that. We've been very
That's a great
successful.
point. That's a great point. Most of what your program has done is to invest in the market so that, you know, you've got a pretty decent collection rate. It has peaks and valleys, but you do ultimately get first-time home buyers assistance back. I mean, they become liens against the property. It's not a burden to the property owner until they sell the property, etc. But it does create a revenue source. So you're exactly right. You're not just putting it into something and then it's gone. So you've been able to grow that program over 20 years to be pretty substantial.
Looks like it's another way to grow it some more to me. I don't see anything downside on it myself.
So we would have, if we approve this, we would have to get a contractor to do the work that we would oversee, just like we do if we own the house, and we own the house.
Has anyone estimated, we've got an estimate of 15 to 20,000, but it seems like a lot of things that were listed that you can do, and is that realistic, or where did that figure come from?
I think it came from Habitat. We just asked them, what do you think it would cost to fix it up?
But they do this a lot.
I would be supportive. I think we've got a good CDBG project. And particularly to Alderman Seaver's point, that ours is does have some mechanisms for funding from within as well. We've been able to leverage the money that's come from the federal government instead of just acting as a dispersing agent. This is another opportunity to do that.
It's just the next step for us.
Absolutely.
Any further discussion?
I move approval.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Wells, second by Mr. Seaver. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, carries unanimously. All right, next on our agenda is appointments to boards and commissions. Does anyone have any appointments?
I'd like to appoint Ms. Wanda Hale, to Public Work Commission.
Wanda Hale.
Rhonda.
Rhonda Hale.
I'm still looking for someone in Ward 3 to serve on the recycling committee. I think that's what I love.
And the same thing goes for Ward 4. And all the rest of the vacancies on our boards and commissions. I just remind everyone once again, if you have an interest in any of these particular boards and commissions, be sure to contact us and let us know. Or if you have any neighbors that you think may be interested, let us know.
Usually about this time of year, we get a list of applications for those. So I feel like we could find some folks on those who haven't been appointed, still seeking appointment.
All right, we have an appointment by Mrs. Fox. Is there any other? Second. On this is
Well, I move approval for the
second. All right.
yes, sir.
Motion made by Mrs. Fox, second by Mr. Meisner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. That carries. Are there any presentations or petitions or requests? Anyone have any matters not on the agenda? Mr. Pope, did you have something you'd like to say?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to do a presentation to City Council. To be perfectly honest with you, I did not get my agenda packet until midday today. I did not have time to scan it, so I did not know what was on it. And I hesitated asking to be heard when the first presenter made his statements, but I have some concerns I would like to voice to City Council about the decision that you have made to this point.
Specifically
concerning videotaping and airing your City Council meetings.
Okay. Mr. Pope, I would say that we decided not to vote on that tonight, and that we are going to hear from people individually, as you have spoken, and if you would like to speak with us, that after this meeting, we would all be available, or any of us would be available that you would like to speak to concerning that, not only tonight, but in the future.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I understand that and I appreciate that. But what I also know is that that's got to come back before council to be voted on a second time. And what I would like to do is express my opinions, because one thing that you have said down the road, the whole time that these issues have been going on, transparency is supposed to be important to you council members, but it's, for me, it's though you do not want the general public to have two sides, to maybe encourage them to give some input in the decision that you will be making at another city council meeting. So I would appreciate it greatly if y'all would allow me to be heard. Now, before you change your agenda, citizens were heard both at beginning and end. And I'm just asking, because of my disability and not knowing what was on the agenda, I think I should be given that opportunity.
Okay, Mr. Pope.
How do we allow Mr. Pope?
I asked if there's a motion by Mr. Seaver to allow it. Do I hear a second? There is no second. Mr. Pope, I would invite you and encourage you to speak with any of us after this meeting or any time in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
right,
I'll send my comments to the media.
Yes, sir. Are there any other general comments by members of City Council, City Manager, or the City Attorney?
Yes, I have, I picked up in paper, I don't know how many of you see the Observer, but there's an article in today's paper about House Bill 150, which very much affects neighborhood conservation overlay districts, and that very much affects some of the long-range planning that we've gone through with Claremont, West Hickory, Kenmore. This is a pretty serious bill that affects what local governments can do as far as design criteria and infill in older neighborhoods. The neighborhoods relying on an overlay district for design consistency. All of those neighborhoods would lose their protection under this bill. This bill comes up Tuesday. And I would really like to suggest that staff, if you do not understand this bill, could you get the council members the background so that we can let our representatives know? For folks that have gone through hundreds of hours with Green Park, all these neighborhoods that have overlays, folks, this is huge. And that would take that out. And if you want to pull up, or I can leave this for copy. This was today's Observer, and it's an article because the Wake County mayors had held a press conference about this bill. It very much affects older neighborhoods, and particularly ones with overlay districts. I'm not the expert to expand on this. Brian assured me he's been following this, and he may can add to this. But Brian, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this is really important.
To that point, I'd seen that too, and what it essentially does is, I agree with you, it strips a lot of the city's authority to, within its municipal boundaries, to set its own rules and policies. And I'd also like to suggest to council that there is a strong movement afoot down to the General Assembly that is really very anti-city, very anti-city. So I think it's important that we stay close to our representatives. But I mean, we see that the General Assembly is trying to take over the Charlotte Airport. They're trying to get out. They're trying to take the Dorothy Dix property away from the city of Raleigh. They've taken the Asheville water system and turned it into an authority. So there's a very strong anti-sentiment, it seems to be in the General Assembly.
Well, I understood from Dave when he added that this excluded historic districts. Well, that's great that they are going to exclude historic districts from this ban. But folks, we didn't choose to expand historic districts in Hickory. So we have a lot of great old homes in West Hickory, Green Park, parts of Claremont, parts of Kenworth that are in overlays. And so we completely lose control over people that live in these wonderful parts of town because some fella from a new community that obviously just doesn't like regulation, he probably hasn't got a clue about the neighborhoods that we have in Hickory and how many hours some of us have spent going through long-range planning process to put these overlays into place. So, you know, I would urge each of you to get in touch with your representatives. I'm going to be following the paper. I don't know if this was in the paper before and I missed it, but this is a fairly big article on the press conference. I guess I've been so busy reading about the seizure of the Charlotte Airport, maybe I didn't realize this House bill was approved.
Can we all just get a copy of that? I'd just like to say this past Saturday, the city celebrated on March 17th the 100th anniversary of the city manager council form of government. And Mr. Berry gave a great account of our 100-year history. And if you missed that, then I'm sure he can reiterate it. He practiced it to the third graders, and then I think he gave it to maybe the Kiwanis or someone, and then went to the folks
We're
there.
going to keep it on our level.
Yeah. But anyway, he did a tremendous job, and I just want to take this opportunity to let everyone know what a professional and what a great city manager we have, and thank him for this service. Any further comments? All right. Move to be adjourned.
Well, we'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.